I think our country hasn't been able to extend health coverage to everyone because in this country you kind of have to have money to have health coverage. Although like all jobs are supposed to offer it, like if you're homeless, you can't have health coverage because you need an address, and people who are homeless don't have addresses. Therefore, they cannot get health coverage through a job, and they can't even be offered a job because they don't have an address. The richer people in this country have better health coverage than poorer people. I find it really hard myself to get an appointment, a doctor's appointment, because the hospital that I have through Medi-Cal is jam-packed with patients and phone calls all the time. And if you were in a private institution, like a private hospital, I don't think people would have that problem.
The argument is about capitalism. That's the problem, that our healthcare system is making a lot of money for a lot of companies, and if we have a universal healthcare system, then they're going to lose out on all that money. So their argument, the outside argument, is that capitalism would be hindered, and I think that that's true. But that's what I want, because I want it to be a country more about people and a little bit less about capitalism and corporations. But that's just my hippie view.
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that America is so huge and it has a huge number of different opinions, and that some people say yes and some people say no, and that until they all see the benefit, we're always going to have this tug of war. If you go to other socialized countries where they have social medicine, it's because they're much smaller and it's easier to get a cohesiveness with a group.
I think the government is trying to spend money on things that don't represent the American people. I think education is a great representation of America right now, but education is being cut. Arts is being cut, music's being cut. There's many aspects of education that's being cut, and I think putting our spending into militarism and guns and nuclear war is not something that should be the first thing on the American political agenda.
I think it's kind of asinine, especially considering that we spend so much money on our military, which, you know, a lot of our military is kind of inactive or, you know, simply on bases in other parts of the world. And it supports our kind of like a policing thing that we have with our military. I feel like we should be putting more money into supporting immigrants and, you know, low-income families instead of taking away that money and putting it into our budget for military. So
I think that it has a lot to do with the way that, you know, we package everything. You know, we can't just address one issue at a time, and so the whole government shutdown was just silly. It was just a dick swinging contest. I'm sorry. That's all it was between sides, and you know, nobody wins in a dick swinging contest. Literally nobody.
I think it's pretty ridiculous, and that having two major groups fighting over, and when we're all on the same boat, and that what one doesn't do just to spite the other is actually ruining everybody. So I just think that they need to all grow up and get with the program.
I am somewhat split between this. Although I agree that drugs are not good, but the regulation and the way that we go along with, I guess you can say, cracking down on drug usage, it's done in the wrong way. We don't allow for the proper rehabilitation of people, you know, especially if they're sent to jail or prison for doing those drugs or possessing the drugs. I feel like it could be done in a better way to help make those people fit for society again, instead of just having them go through a revolving door in the prison system.
I think that it's another just ridiculous thing. I think it's just another way you're kind of punishing the users, but, well, they're already kind of screwed because they're drug addicts. Like, their life isn't going their way. So the fact that we're having a war on drugs, it's really just a war on people. We should be really more focusing on rehabbing people and cleaning up and helping people than punishing them for their drug use. But then again, that just feeds into like capitalism again and prison systems, and I'll get my little tinfoil hat if we keep going.
So I'm half and half on it because my son does use like marijuana, for example, for medicinal purposes. But I also saw too that he lost 2 years of his life using that medicine or that drug. And so, you know, part of me says, okay, it was harmless in the sense that it didn't make him do any more drugs, but at the same time it made him waste 2 years of his life. So legalizing it would make it less criminal and have that be allowed, but I don't think it'll make it worse for people. If they're going to get into drugs, they're going to get into drugs, and if they're not going to get into drugs, then it'll be a recreational thing, and at least it's regulated.
That's another thing I am pretty much opposed to. I do understand the point of having border security, but to be fair, at the end of the day, it doesn't exactly make any sense because people are going to come into the United States illegally regardless of that. On top of that, it's a waste of money, and Trump likes to liken it to the immigration issue in Europe, but the immigration issue that we have in the United States is completely different. There isn't exactly a war going on in, you know, the bordering countries that we have, but it is impoverished, and we do have better opportunities, though it's not as dire as they make it seem, and the people coming into the United States are not the bad people that they make them out to be.
I think it's one of the funniest things I've heard in a really long time, that people are taking it seriously. Like, we tried the wall thing in China, didn't really play. I can't believe we're trying it again. It's just ridiculous. Like, it's just ridiculous. Makes me feel things, mostly anger, but then comedy, because it's so stupid. Yeah.
Well, we tried the wall before. I think, wasn't there another presidency, Bush or something, that had this wall between Mexico and the United States and the southern border, and it was like such a joke. I also think too that having a wall or a border stopping people from coming in or going out, etc., is not really helpful for a general society, and that we need to consider all of people going in and out.
In government are not really led by the people because, well, like last election, popular vote didn't really work out, so it didn't really feel like it was the people's voice. Anything you gotta say?
And then, do I feel that the country's democratic in the practice? Maybe like a little bit, but not, you know, not all the way democratic in the practice. Wait.
Yeah, do you think the people's voice is being heard?
No, the people's voices are not being heard. It's mostly the people that are already in government that are making the decisions, not the people itself.
There you go.
I think that is probably on the lower end. I think that while our voices are really important, we're electing people that don't actually have our interests in favor, and so our voices really aren't being heard in the way our current system is working, because we're talking about a wall still.
I'd say it's a little bit more, it's a little higher than middle of the road, so I'd say between 0 and 10. Then I'd say more like 7, because we have to speak up for what we believe in. It's my phone.